Hi everyone, today I'll show you how to use Sentio to set up real-time monitoring and logging for PancakeSwap on Aptos. As you can see, we can monitor TVL, daily active wallets, trading volumes, and also pool statistics. On the event log page, you can zoom in on a single log to inspect all the details. You can also filter based on certain conditions. For example, I can filter for all swaps greater than 1 million. And there you have it. Only one transaction in the last month exceeded that amount. That's the overview of this project. Okay, let's move on to the environment setup. Here is a quick start guide on our documentation site. First, you'll need to install Node.js, specifically version 22. Next, register for an account on our website and use the CLI to log in. The process is pretty straightforward, so I'll skip the detailed steps. Let's get right into the coding. To start, use the Sentio CLI in your terminal to create the project. You'll need to pass Aptos as a parameter to specify that it's an Aptos project. Then, navigate into the project directory and install the dependencies. Next, you'll need to fetch the ABIs. In this case, I need the ABI for PancakeSwap. Sentio provides a convenient command to do this. I'll just run it with the PancakeSwap address on Aptos, and the command automatically fetches the correct ABIs for me. Next, open the project in your favorite IDE. I suggest renaming this file for better clarity. Okay, now run yarn sentiogen. This will generate all the required types for our project. With the setup complete, you can start writing the processor logic in this file. Go ahead and remove the sample code so we can start from scratch. First, let's import our dependencies. These include types generated from the ABIs. We also need primitive types from Sentio's metrics system, and finally, we'll import a few utility functions. Now we can begin writing the code. The first thing we need is a template for the swap logic. This template comes from the extension I mentioned earlier. As you can see, it requires a few key metrics. First is volume. This records the total trading volume. Next is volume by coin. This records volume for trades involving a well-known asset. Then we have TVL at all, which records the total value locked for the entire protocol. The other two are filtered TVL metrics that use whitelists. You can read the implementation to understand the details. You could also write this part yourself, as it's not too difficult. We need to define all of these metrics. I'll just copy the definitions here. We define all the gauges and then pass them into the Aptos DEX implementation. Okay, now we can write the actual swap processor. We call swap.bind. This binds our processor logic to the PancakeSwap contract. Next, let's handle the most important part, the swap events. We'll write a callback function to process them. Let's look at what's inside the swap event. It contains type arguments and the decoded data. All of this is automatically generated by the Sentio SDK. This gives you both coin type information and the swap amounts. For the next step, let's extract that information. I'll paste some code here. We get the coin types from the type arguments. We get the amounts from the decoded data. Then we use a Sentio utility to compute the trading volume. This automatically calculates the volume and stores it in the gauge we provided. Next, let's get the rest of the coin information. We need details like decimals and symbols. There's another Sentio utility function that can give you all this information. Now, let's write this data to an event log. First, we'll define a message here using a template. We can set the message content dynamically based on the swap's direction. Next, we'll write everything to the event log. We'll also add a distinct ID for each user. This is what lets us calculate daily active users later on. Alright, let's move on to computing the TVL. Now, calculating TVL is handled differently than events. That's because all the pool information is stored in account resources. The easiest way to do this is to have our processor wake up periodically. It will list all the pools, compute their TVL, and then record that value in Sentio. Sentio has a handy primitive for this called onVersionInterval that lets you do just that. Here, we bind to the same address. Then we can use the simple utilities we provide to compute all the values inside the pools. I'm going to skip adding the other events since they're very similar, and we'll go straight to the upload stage. To do that, you'll just run yarn Sentio upload. This will upload your processor to Sentio and kick off the execution. If you hop over to the project page, you'll see it's now in the queue. And now it's starting to process. It will take a minute or two to get started. We can just watch it here. As you can see, it's starting to backfill. This will take a while to finish. And once it's finished, we can view the metrics on our dashboard. Alright, the backfill is all done. Let's actually build out some dashboards. First, let's keep an eye on our daily active users. All we have to do is add a new bar chart. We'll tell it to use the swap events, and then just use the built-in function to calculate the DAU. And really, that's all there is to it. Next up, let's make a chart for our TVL. For this, we'll want a lines chart. Now you'll see at first it breaks everything down into a bunch of different lines. To see the total, just hit sum, and that'll roll everything up into one single line for you. That's the total TVL for the whole PancakeSwap protocol. From here, you can just create the chart. Alright, so I'm going to skip making a bunch of other charts. For more inspiration, you can always check out the sample project. So yeah, that's everything for today. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.